We're live here with Joseph Osei-Owusu, who is the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, talking about Parliament. We talked about the budget and living within our means. Let's talk about the MPP, Joseph Osei-Owusu. Before we even talk about the party and the election of your new flag bearer, yourself, you've announced that will not be contesting in the 2024 elections in Bekwai.
That's right.
It remains the same?
The same.
Nothing has
changed. We just had a meeting with the General Secretary, and he said those of us who have no intention of contesting again, we should confirm it to him in writing. As soon as I'm done with you, I'm going to have my letter sent to him to confirm that I do not intend to contest in this election again. My mind is made. I think I've done enough for my country and for my community to retire.
What made up your mind?
When I was joining the race in 2008, 2009, I had a certain set of things I expected to see. I had planned that should happen within my constituency. I believe all of them have happened. All of them have happened, and even more, way beyond what I had in mind.
You now want to have a free space to give a shot at the running mate position. True?
Running mate, do you give a shot at it?
Well, people lobby. It's also pretty intense, and I'm pretty sure you've noticed that it started already.
I don't know about that. My focus now is to help my side, the government business, to be well implemented here in Parliament, my role. And then my focus is to do what I can to help our presidential candidate to win. It doesn't mean that I have to be personally involved in it. For me, I think for me as a person, I've achieved my life's dream.
Is that to say that, Joseph Osei-Owusu, you're not interested in being a vice president of this great republic of ours?
Don't pray for that for me. I've not desired. I do not pray for that.
I'm asking
I do not wish for that.
You haven't wished for that?
No.
You haven't prayed for it?
No.
You have
plans for it? I pray for victory for MPP. I pray for peace in the country. I pray for commitment. But above all, I pray for honest and responsible citizenship.
So even if you're offered, you turn it down?
Nobody has offered me anything, so I don't think all this is speculation. I'm not interested in speculating about anything. I don't want any discussion that focuses on me. The focus should be on the presidential candidate. He has been given the choice to make. Let's focus on him.
Have you been made any offer at all?
I do not desire to discuss that.
But you have
an offer. I have no intention of discussing.
Because a bird whispers to me that the party values you greatly and offers have been made to you.
I'm happy to learn that the party places value on what I do. By nature, I love focus. This is where we're going, stay there. This is the role you give me, I do it with my utmost
What role
best.
have they given you?
Deputy Speaker. I have done it to my utmost best. I don't complain.
In anticipation of you, of course, not running, you have time on your hands in the coming year.
Yes. And what I intend to do is to have a quiet life.
Talking about that, though, your party is clearly divided. I mean, the results of your primary show that. You have Kennedy Dupont, by the way, who did exceedingly well. And he's been speaking recently saying, well, the party can't take decisions without him anymore. You agree that he is now a power broker in your ranks?
I don't know about that. There's only one leader. He's the presidential candidate. The party has structures for taking decisions.
What should the party do with Kennedy Dupont, though? What should the vice president do with him, considering the backing that he received in the primaries?
Why are we making it appear that in a competition, once you get a certain percentage, then the dynamic should change? I don't think that should be the case. It is important to recognize him as placing second in the competition and pulling a very respectable votes.
So you have Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as somebody from the north, but he's also a Muslim. Very unique for your own party. I mean, you've had to fend off the tag of being in a camp party for so long. Now you have it. He's going to come up against John Mahama. What are his chances, considering the peculiarities he brings to the table?
Very bright. Everybody who is going to vote and who wants to be voted, of course, there are people who would vote for a party and a party symbol, not with. But anybody who wants to evaluate them has their independent and respective roles in the past as a guide. And I'm sure that if you placed Bawumia against Mahama, Bawumia will always outshine Mahama.
Based on?
Based on what they have done in the past, what ideas they have thrown out, how they have helped implement them, and their quality of person and their integrity.
You've heard recently the conversations already beginning to surface around his religious origins as a Muslim. What do you make of how this is now beginning to creep into obviously the campaigning which has already begun?
But why is being a Muslim an issue in this country? It doesn't. The religion of a candidate may appeal one way or the other. That's regular, it's normal. But for me, our constitution is very clear about not discriminating based on religion. So I truly would deprecate anybody who discusses the candidacy in terms of religion.
Some within Parliament have already done so. In fact, in the last few days, there's been calls for rebuke of such. In Parliament itself, is it something that you are mindful of?
I'm mindful of talking in a way that debases our constitution or that tags a religious group. I'm very careful, or an ethnic group. This country, one of our strengths, if you look across our region, the major strength we have is that we don't place emphasis on religious division or ethnic division. In fact, one of the major things, and I recall when in 2017 or 18, the president called a meeting of all ministers, MMDC, SAMPs, and one major issue that came that is it possible to review the free SHS so that we take out the boarding. The president said, listen, our system, bringing people from all over the country, different parts, and letting them grow together, it has been the major reason we are so united and we don't fight over these things. Okay, so if politicians begin to attack what has held us together, we'll have ourselves to blame. So I consider any such act as irresponsible, totally irresponsible. Tag me, and I'll say, Osei-Owusu, you are not capable of A, B, C, D because of what you have failed to do in the past. But by what religion doesn't matter? It should not matter at all. There's nothing in the practice of any religion in this country that is inherently inhibitive of a person's performance. There's nothing inherent in any religion that is inhibitive or in a way affects the person's integrity or competence.
And very quickly, finally, on this point of your party and the flag bearer that you have, he definitely have to make a decision. You say it is his prerogative, allow him to make the decision on who the vice presidential candidate is, the running mate. What should be the defining principles in making that decision? What do you want to see in your flag bearer, in your running mate, for example?
I want to see a person who complements the flag bearer, a person who brings to the flag bearer some values which complement what he has.
Define those values. Define those values.
Oh, my values are mentally clear. Your integrity, your commitment, the person who can focus, we have to get this done and it's done. The persons who command respect generally in the party and outside the party. And I think that if we get somebody who brings those values to complement what he brings himself. Yeah.
Among the field, I mean, I'm sure you know the names have been thrown out. Your name, you say you've taken yourself out of the equation. He says you haven't dreamt about it, you haven't wished it. So you are of course cancelling yourself from the equation. But Napo, your good friend, has been put in there. Osei-Owusu has been put in there. Even Educhum has been put in there. So many more people, of course, names being thrown away out there. Any of them meet that criteria I just laid out?
They meet, and many more outside this 3-4 you have mentioned also meet that criteria. The reason these people are mentioned, because they're already in the public eye because of the work they do. But they are not the only group of people who are eligible to be nominated. And I think that the field is wide, and we should allow him the space.
Many will be surprised that you rule yourself out.
Why?
Because they say you qualify.
Yes, that's
you perform creditably in your own constituency in terms of the votes that Bawumia got. Since you backed him, you must have campaigned and gotten your followers there and the delegates who vote for him, 71% of the votes.
It's more than that. We actually got 75.9. I saw the figures and I was surprised. Those are not correct. So a lot of
but that actually backs my point. You've done well for him.
No, what it means is that those who are evaluating may also be wrong in their evaluation.
Yeah, but let's say 75. That means you did well for him. So
yes.
Why do you take yourself off the board?
Because I think that we should allow the man the space to look at the whole gamut and select.
But at least you agree that a person must come from the Ashanti region.
I agree. Our party's dynamics, it will help a lot.
How?
If exactly? We select from Ashanti region.
How will it help?
It gives the people in the region confidence that the party values their immense contribution to the party's votes. And so it helps a lot. I agree with that.
I mean, when you say you think that there's a view that Ashanti has been somehow neglected or haven't gotten their due, considering how much they backed your party. I mean, for the first time, we saw Chairman Sabonsu go into his own constituency and literally had to leave because people were throwing sachet water at him. He spoke about this very openly. And people looked at it and said, that is an example of the grievance that the people of Ashanti region have towards your party. Is that why you say it will at least acknowledge their contribution to your party?
No. You see, I think that in a way, what truly has happened, like, we the politicians are not talking about them. We are allowing press, media, to pick and choose. When they talk about things that have happened in the region, I'm surprised nobody talks about my constituency, Bekwai. So much has happened there by this government. Indeed, nobody, no government has done as much for Bekwai constituency, not just Bekwai town, as this government has done. But when it's about, they have neglected the Ashanti region. When I hear people talk, none of the people talking from elsewhere can compare what this government has done for Bekwai or in Bekwai constituency. Yet, I probably should take the blame. My focus has been way too much about here, Parliament, that I'm not touting the major things that this government has done in my constituency. And many of us are focusing about the way forward. So, but for me, when people talk about what has not been done, they talk about the things. I for example, probably we are on air. I have an issue with focusing on one project at one location that will cost roads. If we spend that same amount of money, we would have covered almost 10 constituencies in terms of roads. But hey, that's what the focus is on. Prestigious project.
You have an example?
I'm afraid to talk about that. But at the discussion, I openly opposed putting that money here. So that same amount of money, if we shared it among all the constituencies in Kumasi, every one of them would have gotten not less than 10 kilometers of road done. But hey, Kumasi appears to be, if it is not done in Kumasi, then it's not done in the Ashanti region. After I have driven around the Ashanti region, when my constituency chairman was contesting second vice, I went with him to every constituency in the region. And I see that I think we are not being fair to our government, because a lot has been done across. Of course, it's not sufficient, because our region is big and densely populated, and it's also fast growing. But I think it is not fair to say that the Ashanti region has not been treated fairly. I don't think so. If you take them region by region, we have not been treated unfairly. But that's not the reason why I think the running mate should come from Ashanti region.
So, crystallize, why do you think the running mate?
I've said so because then we can be assured that the massive votes the region comes, we can consolidate that.
You think the person will be critical in bringing you the votes or helping Bawumia get the vote from Ashanti?
Yes. It will be critical.
The mere fact that you have somebody they identify, running your stronghold identifier that's coming from within.
The region. And a lot of the people that are eligible from the region, people who generally have following in the region, they give people hope in the region. So I suspect that if you put our resources there, we can generate Ghana. And Ashanti region vote is huge, generally, and is often, if we garner them, a lot of them.
We've had this principle that you've articulated play out in other places, and our electoral political history shows that it doesn't always translate into votes. We've had this concept around central region, of course, because it is a swing region. Get your running mate from there. The NDC have experimented with that, and they haven't necessarily yielded the results that they have expected. So that's the counter argument to what you propose.
Well,
that it is not automatic.
I'm not saying it's automatic. I'm saying that if you get somebody from the region, you motivate. You see, my party always wins the region. But when we're able to win 70% or more often.
In fact, 75% plus upwards, that's when you sweep
often.
Sweep to Jubilee House.
Right. So if you get somebody who is liked, respected, and people have faith in, it is easy for that person to mobilize the votes to support the candidate himself. That's why I'll suggest that you should look at that region and pick from within that region. And it generally agreed in the party, generally agreed that if Bawumia wins, his running mate should come from the region.
Does Bawumia agree with this general view?
I think so. I think so.
Okay, that's Joseph Osei-Owusu. And there is one more question I need to ask him, because this comes from Parliament itself. The constitutional review. There are a few proposals on the table. And let me quickly run through these proposals and see whether you agree or not. One is, and of course this is a committee set up by the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, the Constitutional Review Consultative Committee. What are the proposals in there? Cap the number of ministers to 25. You agree?
Well, what is the basis? I would like to see how they came to that conclusion. Which ministry would they collapse? Because actually, technically, if you look at the Constitution, I think there's only one ministry which is mentioned.
Yeah, Attorney General.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you can decide that we don't want any more ministries. But in the end, what do you seek to achieve? Every decision you make must have what you want to achieve with that.
The Constitution also places an upper limit on the number of cabinet ministers at 19.
Mm-hmm.
In the thinking of the framers of the Constitution, possibly, they believed that if you don't have any other number of ministers, but you have 19, you're able to run this country of ours. So, and the right
cabinet.
Yes.
Yes. I don't remember every minister is a member of cabinet. But let's take, for example, energy. that ministry. It's a huge capital-intensive energy. You have the oil and gas sector. You have the power sector. You have now, what do you call them?
Renewables.
Renewables sector. They have one person who have the expertise all around that. And then when people compare, often what they don't look at is the countries you compare with, they have a very strong, honest civil service structure.
We do too.
We don't.
We have a very strong public service. Definitely honest.
We have large number of public servants, but honest I'll never agree. Why are they not Ghanaians? And I'm just emphasizing that Ghanaians generally, we are dishonest.
But they are definitely strong.
You see, in 2002 to 2008, I was chief executive of the DVLA. So we meet at the ministry level often. The chief director, one time I went to his office and he said, observe something. He said, Joe, there are two sources of funds at this ministry. The one that is Road Sector Development Fund, that is World Bank sponsored program, and the Road Fund. He said, the RSDP is dollar based. But in terms of quantity, if you come to the Road Fund, if you quantify this into CD, it's almost the same as the Road Fund. And if you quantify the Road Fund into dollar, it's almost the same as RSDP. But when I look at the amount of roads we get from the RSDP, it's a lot more than what we get from the Road Fund. So we discussed with the minister and Mr. Asim, send auditors to check the certificates that are before us that work has been done. You'll be amazed what happened. A certificate has been brought for 25 kilometers. You go and measure, it's 20. Done. They said, this place, we have put boulders, baked underground. You go and dig and dig and they hit water, nothing. Right? So, my experience in the public service is that our general dishonesty is huge. Huge.
So that is why it's a justification to have more ministers?
It's not justification to have more ministers.
And the politicians are better?
I'm saying that when, and I'll always mention Dr. Nane and get up for him. He says, Joe, our long term is 4 years. Anything we have to do, we have 4 years to finish it. They have nowhere to go. So they say 15 years, 20 years. We don't have that time. So our focus, if Dr. Nane calls you at 4 a.m., at 4 p.m. when you haven't eaten, get something to eat because you don't leave his office before midnight. Work must be done. And he doesn't take excuses. Right? It is because he has a political mandate. It's different from the civil servant. And so, yes, once you have an objective, you need somebody who shares your vision to drive the civil servant who often is not under any...
Yeah, but fundamentally, you disagree with the proposal 1225 because as you...
I don't disagree per se. I said that there should be a basis for coming to 25. If I look at the basis.
And you raise a comparison that in other countries where they have smaller number of ministers, they have a very strong public service, which is also very honest. And my point to you is, well, the politicians are equally dishonest.
Yes, but they are always, there's a test for them every 4 years. If you don't deliver, you go. So they have a sense of agency to deliver more than the civil servant.
And then the Constitution, which of course is a document that you live and breathe, says, I make the point earlier, cabinet upper limit. So if Constitution will place a cabinet upper limit, why shouldn't you have an upper limit of 25 on ministers?
Why?
Because the Constitution have showed you it's possible.
No, it is possible to have a cabinet.
Yes.
Cabinet is a decision-making body.
Of the most critical parts of the economy.
Which one?
Represented.
What did he say were the critical part?
Well, I mean,
what did
the
Constitution
president is allowed to choose his cabinet ministers.
Yes, so
right?
which one is it?
And once the president decides who the 19 ministers are, it means he's actually invariably telling us that he can run this country with these 19 ministers.
No. He can think and plan with these 19 ministers, but he may need more to implement.
Well, that's why they said add 6 more to it and make it 25.
So who are the 6 and what do we seek to achieve?
Well, when you
My focus is not about numbers.
Will decide.
My focus is not on numbers, and I am truly keen about results.
Another proposal is to cap the number of, scrap deputy ministerial positions.
You see, in all that, for me, we should just be able to demonstrate that. We may decide that we don't even have ministers, we don't want DCs and things. What do we want to achieve? It doesn't matter how we do it.
A more efficient government, leaner, efficient, effective government.
Mm-hmm. So I want to see how we demonstrate that. I'm not making any opinion. I'm not offering any opinion just based on numbers or suggestions. No, I want to see. Fortunately, I started, DVLA was practically on paper. It was, by the time I took DVLA, it was still called VELD. When I went in and I saw, wow, at the time it was conceived, these were the number of vehicles that were coming in. Yeah, the time I took over, this is the number. So if we are going to do the work effectively and need at least 24 testing officers at Accra alone, I had 80. Right? So I had to go and make a case. There's a management services division, demonstrate to them that to be able to test effectively, you need this number. They came, we demonstrated that before they gave us the permission to recruit. So I want to see how the numbers will play out in the work. When was the Constitution drafted? 1992. And this is 2023, 30 years on. Yeah. What was the population of Ghana at the time? What is the population today? Yeah. These are some of the things
so that's why they actually proposed a review, because we've linked it now for 30 years.
That's right, I agree. So I am not keen about talking about numbers just in the vacuum.
What about the constituency capping also? There's one going to be created, 276. Cap it at 277. You agree with that?
For how long?
Oh, cap it forever.
Forever.
Yes.
Now we are 30-something million. When we get to 100 million, we'll still cap it at that.
Yes.
Well, that's, as I said, I don't believe in just numbers for the sake of it. There must be a value in wanting representation. I represent nearly 100,000 people. Another constituency, the total population is about 30,000. Is it fair to me? When we are giving resources, we are giving the same amount of resources. I have 116 towns and villages constituting Bekwai. Adaklu has less than 30. Is it fair? So capping it per se should not be my problem. If we're going to do it, we must be fair. What is the number of people living in an area that we call a constituency? What are the factors we agree to discuss? If you use those agreed values and principles, would 277 or 276 be the appropriate one? Somebody at Subing constituency, huge numbers, but the space, the total space of Subing is probably less than one of the communities in my constituency. And I have about 50 of such big communities, but they are not as populated as Subing. So what is the criteria? I'm interested more in those rather than just using absolute figures.
That is Joseph Osei-Owusu. Always a delight talking to you, and all the best.
Thank you very much.
You haven't told me what you're going to do with your life now that you're going to be in active politics.
I want to be a grandfather.
Oh, okay.
Walking my grandchildren to school morning, father. Yeah. But most importantly, I'll see if I can help be an advocate for crafting values, national values, something which will
You go into
inform.
civil society, possibly?
I don't believe in civil society. I want us Ghanaians, not necessarily civil society. I want us to think as adults, as experienced people. I've lived through a certain life as a private lawyer. I've come into public service. I've come into the political space. The experiences I've garnered over the place. Can we share and create something which will inform every young person growing up? The things that you grow up with. I often use my daughter. She's now a lawyer, but when we were in primary school, I had a taxi driver taking them to school and back. One afternoon when they came back, said, Dada, when we were coming, the driver was driving through red light. I said, ooh, so what did you do? I said, we started singing. When you see the traffic light, there is something you must know. Red means stop. So what did the driver do? He said, he started laughing, but he stopped driving through the red light. That rhyme, I was not fortunate. I didn't go to nursery class, so I didn't learn that. But that's a huge value in orientating them. Are there little simple things we can do that will keep young people's mind active about the things that are necessary for having a disciplined society? Politics have worsened our discipline. Politics have worsened our law enforcement. Now, each one of us, his party side does no wrong. Each one of us. If it is his party, then whatever it is will rally to the support of the person. What values are we running the country with? Those are, for me, the things that are critical.
Okay.
If you focus on those things...
And that's what you're going to be devoting your
that's
time to
all
now.
I hope I can garner people for us to talk about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, it's possible that he's made a convert of me. Enjoy the rest of your evening.